Hello everyone, I'm Derek Schneider, President and founder of History Makers Society and History Makers Academy. I had the privilege of pastoring for over 10 years in a thriving local church right here in our own city of Oshawa. At that time, we were experiencing big things. We had sort of a big congregation in a big building and lots of great things happening in the building, but our community at that time hardly knew we existed. Although we were experiencing the things of God in our services, if you were to grid our results according to the Great Commission of Jesus and discipling nations, well, we would be found wanting. It was at that time, I believe, the Lord gave me a holy frustration in wanting to see the community experience God the way we in our church were. I'm sure some of us pastors out there can relate. Oftentimes, the gap between the good things happening in our churches and where the community is, where the people are really at, can be vast. I wanted to close that gap, and it was at that time that the Lord had mercy on us. After a season of trying everything that we could in our services, we had lots of altar calls. We taught on impacting the community. We prophesied, we prayed, but God wasn't coming down and touching our city, although He was touching us. So it was at that time that the Lord answered our prayers in giving us a training system where we began to train and equip the laborers to go out beyond the walls of the church. Now, we didn't put pressure on the whole congregation to go through these trainings because, as you know, in a church community, not everybody does everything. But we opened it up to those who wanted to be used by God out there. Well, after training and equipping some laborers, we began to see the results we were looking for. We had several graduates that started projects and ministries out there in the community, and within a duration of time, the systemic effects of the kingdom of God in the hands of these laborers began to make impact. In fact, there was so much happening in the city through these graduates that the mayor of our city actually presented us with an award welcoming this movement and thanking us for all the transformation happening in the community. We had ministries to single moms and ministries to the homeless and projects for rehabilitation of broken families. Each leader had their place of calling understood, and they were equipped and effective in bringing the kingdom to that sphere. I'll never forget the look on the mayor's face when we held a little party and he presented us with this award. He discovered there were only 13 graduates at that time, but the effects of those 13 were really tangible in our local city. It was at that time that we discovered that small really is the new big when it comes to impacting society. And that should be a relief to some pastors out there. It's not really about how many people you can get in your building, but how much kingdom you can bring to your communities. And it doesn't matter the size of your church. If your people are equipped and organized effectively, you can actually pastor your city through those people. I hope this is a relief to some pastors that are watching out there trying to quantify their results by how many people they have in their church. We were set free from that, and as we put out more of these laborers into the community, we began to organize them in a certain way. We put them into small groups that we called society small groups. Each individual in the small group knew their sphere of calling out there, and they worked together effectively to make impact. These small groups were not your typical home group where there's fellowship or discipleship or coffee and tea, but these were active Navy SEAL type laborers bringing change to the community. Before long, there were other churches that wanted to adopt this model because it worked for everybody that applied the principles. And pretty soon, not only were we seeing other churches have the same results, measurable and reproducible, but we were invited to various nations, and we saw that the results were the same, and sometimes even greater because of the hunger level in some countries. It wasn't long before we began to be recognized by certain international organizations and government officials for the impact that the church was having in these communities and nations. We were seeing in some countries laws changed, and in one case, a kingdom-based curriculum being used in a secular school system for grades 1 to 4. These were the results I had always dreamed of, and they really are what Jesus commissioned us to do in discipling nations. Let's face it, Pastor, nobody knows like you do the amount of time and energy and resources and fasting and prayers that you spend to see God move in your land. We want to be able to help you to see results worthy of the efforts you're giving to God for the sake of His kingdom. I pray that you reach out to us and we can connect with you to help you get this thing going and begin to pastor your communities and fulfill the Great Commission of Jesus. God bless you.